This is just a quick message before we begin to say I am ever so grateful for 30 subscribers. I don't quite know how that happened, honestly, but thank you ever so much for your support and engagement with my channel. Okay, on with the video. Hi, my name is Wyn and welcome to my channel. First of all, if you're a regular here, I'm fully aware that it's been a while. Apologies, by the way, if you can hear people upstairs. It's quite late, but I wanted to just get this out there, done, edited, because I also have to film an extra clip. And if you've been watching the various shorts that I've posted, I think I posted 2. Okay, if you have not, it's perfectly fine. I've been struggling with stress headaches because I'm nervous about going back to uni, and I've just not had much motivation in terms of my depression to be able to do the things that I love, which is unfortunate, but I do really love doing this. So even though things are obviously going to change when I get back to uni, I want to keep doing this as often as I am able. I don't feel fabulous today. My hay fever's been quite bad and I'm a bit sinusy. I can feel a headache coming on, but I've been wanting to do this video for such a long time, so I'm going to see what I can get done for you today. So today, if indeed I have worked out, if I've, in keeping with my current schedule, which is 2 Cushing videos and then a non-Cushing one, if I have correctly aligned my little video schedule with that. I'm not wording myself very well, I do apologise, it's late and I'm feeling a bit kind of I have for you today a non-Cushing video, and next week I plan on doing the last in my Amicus series. Wait, the last? Or the penultimate one? I'm so sorry, I can't remember. But today we're going to be looking at Dolls, which I believe is from, is it 1987, I believe. I don't know if I've mentioned before, but I tend to get annoyed by films that poke fun at, or indeed destroy things for people that I, you know, always found and still find a very important part of, I suppose, harking back to that child-like part of me. I've always really loved dolls and I've never found them frightening, but I did grow up with a number of people at school thinking that my desire to collect them was a strange thing because they found them frightening. A number of them had, of course, seen films like Child's Play, when they perhaps should not have done because of their age. I think, I don't know if I mentioned before, but the first 12 I ever saw was when I was 10. It was Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull. My parents were not especially keen on showing me horror films in particular before I was ready to, and there are still certain films that I don't have much of a desire to see, so although I welcome your recommendations and films to watch and review, I draw the lines at certain things. However, Dolls is pleasingly not filled with the gratuitous violence that I worried it might contain. I partly picked this film up to have a bit of fun because I knew that it was an 80s film and probably one of the first in that kind of doll genre. I mean, just the fact that the tagline beneath the title on this DVD is "they're cute, they're cuddly, and they kill." But, you know, I seriously misunderestimated this film. It is, sorry, I'm just realising that there's a commentary on it, and I do love a good film commentary. Yeah, I don't know, I just, because I think it's older, I tend, when it comes to films, books, music, I like to look at things that, you know, I like to appreciate the rich film history that we already have for our perusal and enjoyment. I am, of course, aware of things like Child's Play and the kind of more recent, like Annabelle and the Conjuring series, but I've never felt particularly drawn to the themes that they showcase, that they explore. Child's Play is something, interestingly, that my brother and my dad have recently shown an interest in diving into, so I might give it a go. I think the issue that I have with some of the other more famous doll films is that the involvement of innocent children. This film has, and I don't think I'm going to spoil it too much today because I have only seen it once. I usually have quite a good memory for the plots of films and things, but I have, as I said, only seen this once, so this is definitely one I will be taking with me when I go back to uni to rewatch it. Although I will keep the lights on. Not because I'm scared. I'm not, no. I that's partly a joke. I don't find this film scary. It's chilling. It has a bit of an Amicus, I think, edge to it, because there is a sort of twisted morality there, which I think is really interesting. I like films that have some sort of moral outcome to them. I, however, do appreciate that often horror films, to be honest, more than any other genre, do deal with quite difficult films through fantasy, and real scary films that are the real, elements of horror within films. Classics like Frankenstein and Dracula are not as horrible, perhaps because of the killing and those kind of darker elements that appear on the face of these things, but because they explore such themes as our fear of foreign invasion, things of a slightly more intimate, forbidden nature, theological issues, is it ethical to create another human being? What would that be like? What would that person feel? This sort of whole, I'm sure I've explained this before, and if you are interested, definitely go and look at my video on how I am able to reconcile my love of horror films and my faith. The idea that in truth it is humanity that are the monsters, not the ones that we label as such, is definitely something that I've discussed before. And I know that, life is not all rainbows and butterflies, I know that, and I think sometimes it is healthy to be able to watch a film and read a story, be aware of things that don't have a happy ending all the time. I would say that the first of those that springs to mind is The Wicker Man. That one does not have a happy ending. If you've not seen it, I'm not going to tell you exactly what, but it's definitely not a fairy tale, that one. This one, however, Dolls, feels much more like a kind of twisted fairy tale. I feared that I may be using the word twisted quite a few times, but it has, I think, as I mentioned, an Amicus edge to it, because it isn't pantomime-y. There is a humour to it, but it is pretty ghastly at times. It is definitely not one to show the kids on Halloween night, because it is quite gory. It is rated as an 18. I don't know if I would rate it as an 18. Probably now would maybe be given a 15 certificate. some people I'm sure would watch it and think, this looks ridiculous. Why would I would give that a 12 or I would give that a PG, but it is quite gory. I mean, the hollowed out eyes and these, you know, teeth under this doll's skin, I suppose, is a little sneak peek, I suppose, a whispering of what is to be found under her face, under the porcelain. And I think, you know, the thumbnail of this video will suggest at least some of the gore that you were to find within this. The blood is still somewhat Kensington looking, Kensington gore, post-paint-like, but these dolls are vicious, basically, to the people that do not do as they should. There is a child in this, her name is Judy, I believe. I don't know if I can find the name of the actress, but I will put it up on the screen. And then there is a man who she befriends, who's not let go of his childhood entirely. And, you know, they don't do anything horrible to the dolls. The dolls don't have a need to teach them a lesson. I'm not saying that anybody deserves to be killed viciously by a doll, but the fairy tale-like morality of this piece does see it that way. That you do good things, the dolls are your friends, you do bad things, they are not. The film combines animatronics, puppetry and stop motion to produce the effects of the dolls. Sorry about my nose. Yeah. And interestingly, this film at one time was going to be even gorier. I don't know if I should mention the gore. I kind of don't want to. Partly so I don't have to plonk spoilers all over the screen and the word to warn people, but also because some of it is just grim. Again, you may watch this and think, what are you talking about? But it's the fact that my dad was going, oh my gosh! It's not disgusting. It is watchable. Does make you feel a little shiver down your spine. It doesn't make me afraid of dolls. But you know, I don't know. Do some people watch films to become scared of things? I don't know. I did not listen to the Fear on 4 episode, The Snowman Killing, so that I could become scared of snowmen. But, you know, sometimes you cannot predict what will happen after you have been exposed to something. I will eventually talk about Fear on 4. That is probably something that I will leave for when I'm at uni, because I won't have access to all of my flashy DVD covers to show off to you when I'm there. But there was initially going to be even more gore added to this, but it was decided that what is included within the film was sufficient. I like this not only because of the fact that it is a moral tale, that it is very fairy tale-like in that sense, but there is a genuinely enchanting quality to it. I wouldn't say that there is the need for comic relief, because there is a lovely innocence to it. I mean, it does feel like you are in a fairy tale, in a pantomime, which I think is lovely. I don't mean pantomime in that the villains, you know, the dolls of the piece are kind of black and white pantomime villains. I don't mean that at all. Although sometimes it's fine to have that. It is just the innocence of Judy, the little girl, permeates the plot throughout. The music is amazing. I particularly like the credits because, if I remember correctly, I think it's the O houses a picture of a porcelain doll. I don't know. It's strange because I get that the reason that people are frightened by things like dolls and clowns is because they are symbols. They are images that we believe to look so innocent that they surely must be hiding something behind that. But it's difficult for me because they're just cute. So when you see them getting a little bit angry, I remember there's one scene where one slowly closes her fist like this and her face changes. I find that kind of funny, and I do realise though, if I were about to be chased by some evil dolls, laughing at them would probably not be the best thing to do. But I don't know. Later in this video, although I might have to do some splicing of clips and do this tomorrow because it is quite late, I think it would be somewhat impractical of me to bring all of my dolls down here to show you because that is the second part of this video. So far, I have not been killed, scratched, well, killed obviously, unless I'm a ghost film. I can ghost film YouTube videos. I don't know, I'm going down a bit of a rabbit hole, I do apologise. I have never been hurt by a doll, as far as I'm aware. I have slept with dolls in my bedroom since I was tiny, honestly. But I only started collecting porcelain dolls quite recently. It's just always been a dream of mine to become a collector of things that I just think are such glorious examples of genuine artistry and craftsmanship. Yeah, I love them. So one of the things that I love the most about this film in particular is the attention to detail that you find within the sets and the dolls themselves. I would love to know how they got their hands on all of these things. Surely some of them must be antiques, because it would just be such a job, but I would say a very rewarding one for any prop maker, doll maker, whatever, to produce everything for this film. Yeah, it has definitely opened my eyes up. I know that it has become somewhat of a cult classic, which is nice because it was one of the first, I believe, in this genre, as I said. Indeed, it predates Chucky, and of course Annabelle was released in the 2000s at some point quite recently. Certainly within my perception of what recent means, because I will quite happily watch silent films from the 20s, and my favourite period of history, as I know that I've said before, is the Civil War period, so like the 1600s. So I don't really see, 2011 maybe, as that old. But I definitely think it's nice to be able to go back and watch the films that started that spiral. There are so many different sub-genres within the horror genre, and I think that is amazing. I think in the past maybe I would quite happily have called for a boycott, an end to all killer doll films, because I don't, certainly at the time I didn't see the point. I do, just because I got angry at the fact that so many people are scared of dolls because of these films, but the horror industry, of course, does need at least some fear in order to, I mean, why else do people watch horror films? I mean, okay, I could say many reasons, kind of branching out into more philosophical areas, but you know, the main reason why people watch horror films surely is because they enjoy being scared. I think it's just as a child, I used to get frustrated because everybody else was playing with teddy bears and I had dolls. Yeah, and it's interesting to me that, I mean, there is an aggressive, maybe putting it tad mildly, but there is an aggressive teddy bear in this film, interestingly, but it always fascinated me, and still does, as to why nobody is scared of teddy bears, or at least not anybody that I know, whereas dolls are, yeah, I mean, they frighten my mum, and I'm not entirely sure why. She was not happy when I started my collection. I will put the names of 2 sellers in the description that I get my dolls from, and mostly, yeah, I bought one in a charity shop, but all the others are from online second-hand people. But I don't know. This film was it directed by or produced by? Sorry if my head is getting very close to the screen. Okay, yes, it was directed by Stuart Gordon, who was also behind the Reanimator, and I believe was also involved in some shape or form with the Puppet Master series. That, or this greatly inspired that series, and that is something that my dad and I are interested in looking out for, definitely. And I suppose, yeah, it's given me more of a... It's given me food for thought, definitely, that there is a twisted entertainment to be found within these films. If that means that I spend a lot of the film just going, well, I like it because I find the dolls cute, and as long as I respect that if a genuine killer doll were to exist and try to kill me, that I probably shouldn't say that to them. I suppose that's fine. I will give Chucky a go, at least. But yeah, I don't know, it's odd that I used to be so affected by this. But you know, I really love stop motion, and not that this film looks, the effects are amazing, honestly, and I think I've never seen a piece of stop motion that didn't look good, honestly. I love the more practical use of effects within film, TV, theatre. Obviously the theatre effects have to be practical. I love that, I really do. And this film left me feeling very, very pensive about many different things. Not only the thematic elements, you know, the philosophical, theological perhaps, themes within it, but also maybe the fact that I should try and put aside my initial perceptions of this kind of subgenre. Yeah, I really like it. I would be willing to seek out other films that came after it. I will say though, I am aware that this is not the first collection of killer dolls to ever grace our screens. I don't know if I've mentioned before that one of the scariest films ever made would be Fear in the Night. Is it Fear in the Night? I believe it is. From 1945. It is a film that directly influenced Milton Subotsky's decision to branch out into portmanteau films, which, in case you're not aware and you've just clicked on this video by chance, I am exploring within a series called Peter Cushing and the House... No, Peter Cushing and the Studio The Drip Blood, which I believe was a nickname given to Amicus on at least one of my DVDs, I believe by Anchor Bay. I do love a bit of Anchor Bay. It's a DVD distribution company, film distribution company, whatever. And yes, Fear in the Night features, in probably its most famous segment, a ventriloquist doll by the name of Hugo. And I suppose as sort of like a precursor to Psycho. From 1960, Hitchcock's, one of Hitchcock's finest, of course, has, like, explores the idea of a split personality within a horror film, which, yes, I fully acknowledge is a little problematic. As somebody that struggles with my perception of and relationship with reality, and as somebody that has greatly studied things like DID and borderline personality disorder, I do understand that we should tread carefully when exploring those themes, but it is just interesting knowing how influential like such a tiny piece of runtime can be. As I said, no matter how gory a film featuring dolls is, I am not scared of dolls. I'm really not. I'm not scared of puppets, but there is something about Hugo in that 1945 film that really does chill me somewhat. I think one of the most chilling parts of this film, which actually, no, I am going to mention, so I'll put a little timestamp if you want to avoid little tiny detail related spoiler. It initially, I mentioned that the cover kind of hints at this. Initially the plan was to have the dolls, when they were broken, entirely hollow, as I believe porcelain dolls probably are. I don't wish to investigate by breaking any of my dolls. But it was decided that, in fact, each doll would have a skeleton, so yeah, that is, it is actually rather freakish to see that these dolls are living, breathing. Yeah, it's absolutely fascinating to think about these things. Thank you ever so much for joining me. I will not close here because at least I'm not going to have my usual outro, if you will, because I do need to film my little introductory clip to my dolls. So I appreciate this could be a bit of a long one, although I think last week's was as well. So if you are still here, thank you ever so much for watching. But I would also put a timestampy thing if you want to still see the outro, I guess, but not the dolls. Actually no, I just, you know what, if you're leaving me now, that is completely fine. I understand why people might be scared of dolls, that's fine. So thank you so much for watching, if that is you, and thank you for staying. And if you are still here, I will see you soon with my dolls. Hello! So, this is clip number 2. First of all, as you can see, there are some teddies and things in the corner, but we are focusing on the dolls. So I have 5 porcelain dolls in total. I believe I began collecting them maybe this time last year, I believe. So I have put the links to the 2 sellers that I've used so far, because I like to try and be loyal to people that have good things to sell, down in the description. The one on the end, who I call Lucy, she is the only one that's in a rather unusual fixed position and doesn't have her eyes open. I purchased her in a charity shop for I believe like £4. I used to go into so many different charity shops when I was looking for my perfect doll, but it turned out that eBay is such a wonderful place to find these things. I'm quite specific. Apologies that I'm shaking, by the way. I think I need to go and grab some food. I'm quite specific about the dolls that I go for, because some of them do indeed look rather creepy. These ones, I think, though, look quite natural, quite normal, maybe a little human-like, but personally that doesn't bother me. The first one here, this is Guinevere. She is from the Leonardo collection, I believe, and I have the box down here. and she's, I think I mentioned, she's called Guinevere, so she is inspired by Arthurian legend. She has lots of different necklaces going on, and in a rather Pre-Raphaelite-esque way, she's wearing flowers in her hair. She is absolutely stunning. I bought this one from Barbara, who you can find on eBay. I also bought these two from Barbara as well. This doll was my first, and I named her Barbara after the seller. She is a redhead and she has green eyes just like me, so I felt very drawn to her. I don't know the brand of this doll. I do like to inquire as to the history of the dolls that I purchase, and I know that when it comes to Barbara's dolls, she's had them for many years, and at one point I believe they lived in Tenerife when she lived up there, so they've been travelling. I've never bought or felt an urge to buy a haunted doll. I don't believe in that, but I still don't think one should poke around and fiddle with the things that we don't quite understand. But as I believe I mentioned in the first part, I've never mistreated my dolls. They don't have any reason to hurt me. Certainly in the case of the film that I reviewed in this video, the evil dolls in question only hurt those that deserve, in inverted commas, their fate. This is Beatrice, who came with her name. She's from the Promenade collection, I believe. This doll here is from Knightsbridge. There are a number of quite famous brands that sell dolls. I think the two big ones are Knightsbridge and Leonardo, although I did read somewhere that the Knightsbridge ones are perhaps not they are manufactured at quite a steady rate versus the Leonardo ones, which perhaps are a little bit more rare, I don't know. And then this one at the end, I don't know the name. I'm just going to reach across and grab her because some of them have a maker's mark on their neck. I don't know if she does. No. In fact, I don't think, I believe my Knightsbridge one, who I call Arabella, because I'm just actually going to leave Lucy there. The Knightsbridge one, who I call Arabella, because indeed she has got a little name tag here, and then so has Guinevere. I don't know. Yeah, there we go. The others, I believe, don't have names attached to them via labels or whatever, and Guinevere is the only one that I have that comes in a box. But I think they are all beautiful. This is definitely not the end of my collection. Stay tuned, I suppose, if you would be interested in knowing some more about the random collections that I have. Although I appreciate that unless you're scared of such things, these aren't particularly horror-based. I did just want to say quickly, you'll find two links down below in relation to the dolls. So Barbara you can find on eBay, and Arabella came from a seller that I found on Depop who used to go by Upcycled Youth, but I think now their shop is called Car Boot Sale. I've put both names down below just in case. But yes, you will find the links to both those sellers who still have plenty of dolls and other antique goodies available. Thank you so much for watching this segment, because I believe actually I'm doing an outro too. Filming this little outro just whilst I'm here and set up. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you at some point at the end or the beginning of the following week, the end of this week or the beginning of the following week. Thank you so much for bearing with me, I really do appreciate it, and I should be back soon with the next video in my series of videos on the Amicus portmanteau starring Peter Cushing. and I believe that one will be Asylum from 1972. Take care, and I will hopefully see you all very soon. Goodbye.